Hi Divyansh, this is Himanshi, and today we'll be talking about your journey of CLAT and how did you excel in your journey. And of course, you scored an All India ranking 19, All India rank of 19, and that's a great thing. And that's what we are going to have a conversation today about.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It is an honor to be present on this channel. I personally have been following phenology since class 10th, and since class 11th, when I had political science, there were several videos from this very channel that helped me grasp through the syllabus. For example, I still clearly remember there was this video by Priya ma'am, which was about writs and how she very easily summarized the difference between prohibition and certiorari, how the court exercise both of their writ jurisdiction powers, and I still remember this. So that is an honor to be present on this channel today.
That sounds so great, and I also do feel very elated to have you here together. Given that you have scored so great here, and you've been preparing for a long time, I believe. So I would like to know a little about your journey. आपने कब से शुरू किया? आपने कितना वक्त लिया इसको prepare करने में? When did you basically start about like this thing? आपने कैसे शुरू किया था?
Right. So I have been an active participant of debate competitions and Model United Nations. So it was through these competitions that I started studying about law, and I always had an interest in law, but I did not very well know that it was that well paying a profession. So I did not really think of it as something that I would professionally pursue. It was something that I would study as an amateur. But later I researched about it, so I came to know that there are these national law universities that provide some really great courses, and they also have placements that you get right there sitting in fifth year. So it
Mhm.
was through the summer of class 12 that I came across all of this. Then I decided that I'll drop a year for the preparation, since I just had 6 months for preparation that year. So I prepared for that year. I appeared in class 12th. Did clear the exam, but I was determined to get into a tier 1 college. So I thought that if I could have performed this well in a drop year, if I could have performed this well throughout my class 12th managing school, so if
Right.
I go on to prepare wholeheartedly in a drop year, I would be able to manage this. So that was why I decided for a drop year, and then I appeared for this year, and I was able to get into a really great college this time.
That sounds great. So I believe this was your second attempt, and क्योंकि आपको पिछले time पे you got only 6 months to prepare, and this time you got around पूरा एक साल to prepare.
Hmm.
What do you think really worked for you? Like, how was your strategy different from what you did in the past attempt, and how was it different this time?
Yes. So before taking a drop, what I did and what I would suggest anyone else who is thinking to take a drop is just sit and identify the drawbacks in your preparation. You need to be very well versed about what mistakes that you did so that you do not repeat those mistakes. If you would end up doing the very same thing that you did in previous year, there is a very low probability that you will be able to excel the next year. So I sat back, I analyzed my CLAT paper that I attempted last year. I also
Mhm.
analyzed my entire pattern of, appearing for mock test and the mistakes that I did, the kinds of mistakes that I did. And it was through that I thought these are the things that I should not be doing in my drop year. For example, a very common mistakes was I did not attempt quantitative techniques. So I made sure I will have to do it anyhow, regardless of how high the level of the questions is. Luckily enough, the level was, easy to moderate this time. So I
Easy this
was able
time.
to attempt the entire quant section this time. I got a
Mhm.
12 there. And I would like to mention that it actually is a very important factor, because had I not gotten a 12 on 12 in quants this time, I would not have been sitting here giving an interview for this. So
Right. A lot of
this was one.
students Right, right. A lot of students actually tend to miss out on the quantitative part. They
Yes.
think कि current affairs बड़ा section है, so let's focus on that, or legal
Mhm.
or English for that matter. But yes, to get into the topper range, you have to prepare for all these sections. So that's really important.
Yes. Yes,
So
because what I thought was you cannot really miss on any one subject and hope that that would not end up being the deciding factor. Nobody knows what could end up being the deciding factor. This is something that you would get as an experience after having appeared for a lot of mocks. For example, we sometimes become too complacent and too focused on one particular sequence. but that might actually not be the perfect sequence for you to be appearing during that paper. For example, my sequence was I would start with quants, then I would go on to CR, then RC, then GK, then legal. But when I was appearing for the CLAT paper, I knew that they could, given unpredictable paper, the quants could be very tough, so it could demotivate me. So I decided I would not start with quants. I changed my sequence on the paper day. I started with CR, then I did one caselet of quants. It was pretty lengthy. It took 7 to 8 or 10 minutes. Then I went on to RC. Then after doing GK, I knew that the cutoff would be really high, so I would anyhow have to save time for the second caselet, because without that, I would not be able to clear the cutoff. So then I did legal. Then I ended up saving 10 minutes for another caselet, and that is something that I feel like everybody should be doing. You need to analyze the paper on the spot to understand how high the cutoff should be.
Right. So you should be aware of what is happening wahan pe. It's not necessary
Hmm.
that you're prepared with everything beforehand.
Yes.
There are a lot of things that you need to work right then in those 120 minutes, right? So one should be, or whoever is might be appearing for these exams later on, you should have this part ki kuch surprise element ho sakta hai. And basically we
Hmm.
have seen this pattern in the ALET exams as well, ki kuch
Yeah.
surprise element rehta hai. So we can expect that in the CLAT examination as well. So right, okay. So your thing that something that worked for you was to analyze your strengths, your weaknesses,
Hmm.
and what is working and what is not working for you. So you could analyze this because you attempted it pehle bhi. You have attempted
Hmm.
given a paper, right? But for those who have been attempting or giving the examination for the first time, what do you think will work for them? For the first timers, ki they should be ready with their analysis, and how should they move forward with timing, section wise attempt, and the strategy as well. Ki what should they do pura saal bhar, 6 months before, 1 month before, 15 days before? What should their idea be for the examination?
I think one very important kickstart to the preparation, as already suggested by you people on this very channel, is doing the past year papers. Those are some real checks of how the level of the paper is and how the paper tricks you on that very spot, and how you people need to analyze the entire paper. I know there have been pattern changes. The GK of the previous year might not be relevant, but still having appeared for the past year papers in a limited time slot would give you an idea of how the consortium has been doing in the past years. For example, this year when the consortium issued the sample papers, the GK level was very high, the quants level was very high. Nobody could have expected them to give a GK that they gave this year. So
This is
we
true.
always need to be very much ready with the surprises. The second thing anyone should be doing is analyzing a mock test really well. By analysis, one part of analysis is we all already know, analyzing your mistakes and also the questions that were correct but could have been wrong if you would have had a alternate reasoning. The second part of analysis, which I focused myself a lot on, is the percentile and the ranks. There are mocks which are pretty difficult and you score pretty low, but probably your ranks are way better than the previous mocks where you were scoring pretty high, but the ranks were lower. So the difficulty level of the paper varies. You do not need to set a target that you have to score 70, 80, or 90. Your target should be you have to be in the top 1 percentile or top 2 percentile, so and so. The
Right.
difficulty level of the paper varies. For example, I personally saw many people who had already said that they are going to do 100 attempts or 105 attempts in this paper, but the difficulty level of this year's paper was very much different from the previous years, and those who already thought that they would be going to do some x number of attempts were the ones who were not able to score beyond a threshold because they had already decided, they were already in the comfort zone. So never go pre-decided for the paper. We already know that CLAT is an unpredictable paper, so we need to be ready with all these strategies. And analysis, I feel, is a very important factor, and that is something that could help anyone, regardless of them being a dropper or a fresher.
Analysis do get like gives us a roadmap to understand what kind of examination can we expect ahead. And I think analysis, see, I would like to know your take as well. Does, when we talk about analysis or attempting mock in general, what should actually work for someone? Should quantity work or should quality work on it? Because a lot of students do understand from this perspective कि अगर मैं 100 mocks solve कर लेता हूँ या कर लेती हूँ, I can just get through the examination. But there's this also another perspective कि even if you give 50 marks or 30 marks for that matter, but if you analyze them well, you can get through the examination even better because you analyzed it well. और वहाँ पे in examination जो scenario होता है, जो head अपना जो analysis होना चाहिए basically, वो clearly आप कर पाते हो. So what do you think is better here, quantity or quality?
Quality for sure. I also do remember this very part of video addressed by you in like 3 month strategy to CLAT. Yes, quality does matter. I have already implemented it in my case, and I'm sure it is going to work in almost all the cases. I would have appeared for 60 to 75 mock tests this year, not more than 100. Definitely, there were several people who appeared for more than 100, which I think compromises the quality of analysis a bit. Regardless of how hard you try, if you're going to appear for a mock test every second day, you won't be able to analyze it that well for someone who would be appearing for, let's say, 2 times a week.
Hmm.
So you should not be limiting the number of mock tests you are going to give. In my case, I would sit and analyze each and every question, even if there is a question that would take 10 minutes alone. I would not leave that question. I will analyze all 120 questions present in the mock test, obviously the new pattern. And I feel like that is something that should be your case as well. Because without having analyzed the mistakes, or not even the mistakes, without having analyzed each and every question, you won't be able to analyze and strategize the next paper, the next mock, and the paper that you're going to give at the end, that is CLAT. So quality definitely matters. And also, I would like to mention that please do end up being in diverse sources. There are many
Yes.
people who just go with one particular coaching, one particular mock test, which I feel like makes you very comfortable with that very pattern. There are, several coachings out there. So just try at least one or two mock tests from each and every coaching, because you never know what the level of paper could be. There are
Yeah.
several people who are, very comfortable solving the highest level of difficulty of questions, but what if the level of the paper actually is not that high, as we experienced this year? So you need to be comfortable with diverse patterns of mock tests, diverse
We should be
coachings.
ready with
And
all kinds of
hmm, yes,
scenarios, right? Great suggestion. So we have to be ready with the different kinds of sources. We should be ready with, like, ready in our in our minds for that situation. अलग अलग तरीके के पेपर सॉल्व करके, अलग अलग तरीके की डिफिकल्टी देख के, एंड ऑफ कोर्स जितने हमने मॉक्स देखे हैं उन्हें बेटर तरीके से एनालाइज करके. आई थिंक एनालिसिस इज समथिंग दैट वन शुड really really not miss out on.
right.
And a lot of things also come from the past year's paper. So these are few foundational pillars that one should start with, right? For
Hmm.
any CLAT UG preparation. Okay. So, given that you've been studying for the past 1 year and you've been preparing really well, what were your expectations from this examination? Like, आप exam hall से जब बाहर आए हो, what was your feeling after it? कि इस बार तो बहुत बढ़िया जा रहा है या फिर चलो देखते हैं वैसा?
I was actually a bit disappointed with the paper. And
Hmm.
I was one of those people, majority of whose preparation was based off of difficult mock test. Obviously, I did diversify my sources, but still I practiced majority difficult sources, because I personally felt that with the reduction in the number of questions, the difficulty level of the paper would increase. That did not happen though, but still I thought that that easy of a paper would, end up having everyone on the same pedestal. So I was actually myself personally pretty disappointed of this fact. And I thought the cutoff would easily be more than 100. I even thought there would be people who would end up scoring 120 on 120. Obviously, that was not the case. I think that was because of two factors. A, because I had this habit of practicing on pretty difficult papers, and B, I maintained my composure through and through the paper. There were several people, who lost the composure. For example, I know several people whose entire foundation was based off of practicing for GK and studying GK entire day. So I could
Right.
imagine myself in their place. Had I been in their place, even I would have been pretty disheartened, because the GK was not actually what we were expecting it to be. So
Exactly.
maintaining composure for the paper is pretty important. And the second thing, coming back to the expectations part, yes, I expected the cutoff to be really high. It did end up being high, but it was not that high as I'd imagined it to be. And I personally thought that I would end up being in top three colleges, like somewhere around 200 rank or 250 rank. Or after having checked the paper, when I got to know that this is, I'm scoring 102 marks, so I thought I would end up being in a double digit rank. But AIR 19 was definitely a surprise to me that I came to know on 10th of December. A pretty pleasant surprise, I say.
That's a great audible.
Yes.
I think it has something to do with the link. All right, let's pick up from where we dropped. We were talking about the disappointment that we faced with the question paper this time. And I believe I was also pretty disappointed because we prepare the students for the worst. कि नहीं इस बार 120 questions होने वाले हैं, इस बार तो और difficult होगा. We have to get to this. Let's do all the MCQs. Let's do all the current affairs, and then we have questions which are asked from the passage. So yes, it's disappointing. But this could also be a learning for everyone who are attempting next year या उसके आगे
Hmm.
really well for general knowledge. It is possible कि इसी general knowledge में everyone is scoring 20 out of 20 or 30 out of 30. So then your edge comes to the next sections. Either you'll have to now work on the legal reasoning or English or quantitative for that matter, which is sometimes skipped. So these are the areas or these are the learnings that we should take from the past year papers. All right. Yeah. Also, I would want to ask you about your study pattern. See, in case, so you did drop out, right? But what is your opinion for students who want to manage it with with their board exams as well? क्योंकि for now the schedule of the exam has been changed. कि पहले अब CLAT UG होगा and then the board exams.
Hmm.
So how can they manage their board studies and the CLAT UG preparation as well?
See, I personally see CLAT being an aptitude-based paper as both a blessing and a curse. It is a double-edged sword. You can use it either ways. Because it being an aptitude-based paper, you will have to spend quality time preparing for this exam. Uh, it doesn't really matter if you're a school student or a dropper. If you are investing certain amount of rationale towards this paper, it is definitely going to pay you back. And that is what I feel like is very important. So being a class 12 student, you most definitely can ace the paper. There have been several past toppers who were class 12 students themselves. So it definitely is not something that is going to take you back, and something that everyone needs to focus, regardless of being a 12 student or a dropper, is focusing on analysis of the mock test and their mistakes, and including that the past year papers.
So it basically depends on your preparation. Like something that works for you might not work for others as well. You have to decode key at what depth is your preparation, and that
Yes.
depth you can analyze looking at the past year papers or the mocks basically. So it depends on how much you have prepared.
Yes.
All
Please
right.
never follow someone blindly. You just need to personalize any strategy for yourself. And, if better, if possible, please get it approved by some mentor. But never follow someone's strategy blindly. You need to personalize it for yourself.
To see what really works for you. That's what you have to basically figure out. All right. See, there are a lot of coaching centers, a lot of study material, a lot of YouTube channels, a lot of reading materials out there. In the age of information, what do you think is the significance of coaching centers for us? And do you think self study is still relevant for us? Or should we, like you said, we should not really blindly trust others, but because we have so many other sources, should we look forward to other अलग अलग ढेर सारे sources and then trust them, or should we trust us, the apna self study, or whether there should be a balance between both of these things? What do you think?
Yes, yes, it definitely has to be a balance that needs to be struck between both of these things. Uh, I feel like a coaching institute would definitely help you, but it would be able to help you to a certain extent. Beyond that, this paper is definitely about self-study, as I just said, reiterating the same. It is an aptitude-based paper. So at the end, you will have to figure out yourself what would be something that is going to work for you and what not. There are plethora of sources available over the internet. What I think worked for me was to be content with the sources that I chose. I feel like you should be sticking to certain number of sources. Obviously you need to diversify the content, but there are particular sources that you need to stick with. For example, I see people going on to various websites for studying GK. They subscribe to various monthly magazines, and at the end are not able to revise even the ones that they've properly read. What I feel like is, if you are appearing for several mock tests, or studying GK from several sources, limit those sources to the extent where you're able to revise the GK, and where you're able to get through the mistakes that you've made and revise the mistakes that you've made, so as to not repeat those mistakes. The very point of appearing for mock test is to identify the pattern of mistakes that you're making and do not repeat those mistakes. As for GK, revision is the key concept. Like, if I give you an example of even this year, I was a history student, and I had studied about this Jallianwala Bagh thing from class 11th, then all the way through class 12th. And just because I had not studied those books more than once or twice, I did not tick that very question where they asked us the full name of General Dyer. I
Hmm.
had this in the back of my mind that, it could either be Edward or Coleman, but I wasn't very sure. So I thought, rather than risking it for a -0.25, I would leave that question. That was, by the way, the only question I left unattempted in the entire paper. And what I thought Edward ended up being the right answer, but just because I had not revised it, I did not tick that answer. Obviously, I
Yes.
do not have any regrets for that, but it becomes a very important point where that 1 or 0.25 marks or half mark is going to decide the cutoff of your college. So revision definitely is the key factor. So diversify your sources, but to a certain extent.
Diversifying it, sticking to like, I think when we start with our preparation, one should have a clear idea what should be their sources, limit those sources, and then keep working on it. That should
In
be.
my case, when I started, I found various sources over the internet. I would start saving them over my laptop. I would have more than a dozen tabs open on my laptop. But throughout the preparation, when the paper was coming nearby, I started removing those tabs one by one. And at the end, I would have only a couple of tabs open over my laptop. So you need to be content with whatsoever sources you're using, and have faith in the level of preparation you're doing, because a strong mindset is very important given the amounts of shockers this paper could give you.
That's some crazy insights. That's actually very true. See, there are, I think, five. I think, yeah, we know there are five sections in our CLAT UG paper, and there are certain papers and certain sections that are really challenging for us. There are certain sections that we are really confident with. A lot of students tend to miss out on their weaker areas. They tend to see कि यार अगर मुझसे math नहीं बन रहा है, so they tend to lose the chance of even practicing it, and then फिर बाद में problem होती है. How did you tackle your, like, which was your weaker section, and how did you tackle that part of the exam?
Right. So in my case, being a humanities student, I had completely lost touch with mathematics in those 2 years of school. And as I mentioned, I did not even attempt quants in the last year's CLAT. So I definitely made it a point that I would have to attempt it anyway, even though it is just 10% of the paper. But trust me, that 10% could make or break your rank. So what my case with quants was, I would firstly clarify with the concepts, then start practicing through sectional test. And when I started attempting one or two caselets in the mock test, and I saw that it wasn't compromising with the other sections of mine, and my ranks were increasing. So that is something that I thought was incentivizing my score. So I started attempting it more and more. And towards the end of the preparation, it started becoming the first section that I would attempt in my sequence. So quants was that one section which was my weak area, and is the weak area of majority of the CLAT aspirants, by the way.
Mhm.
The
Right.
second one was GK, but obviously I could not have left GK like I left quants. So it is a liability that I had to study with. What I noticed was, I wasn't studying GK with all my heart. I was someone who loved GK when the CLAT thing wasn't there. I would study GK myself in my childhood, but when I was forced to study GK, I started despising the subject. So something that I would like to point out is, please do study any subject that you're going to study with all your heart. It makes that subject really interesting. In my case, quants became very interesting. I did not employ that strategy for GK, but this is something that you people should be employing for GK as well, or any other weak section that you have. Because until unless you're going to take interest in studying some particular subject, you won't enjoy studying. You won't, your target should not just be enjoying the result. You need to enjoy the process.
So I believe you did mention कि किसी भी section को miss नहीं करना चाहिए. We should give due diligence, due importance to all these sections. See, I've kind of said this once in a while in our YouTube videos as well. कि CLAT usually wants a student who has aced all, like, ace नहीं कहना चाहिए, but has idea of everything. Like you're going to become a lawyer. Come on, you should be good with reasoning. You should have good English. You should be well aware with what is happening around the world. और कभी कुछ maths आ गया तो basic maths आपको आना चाहिए. That's what CLAT really wants from you, right? All right, so let's just wrap this session up. I would ask you the last question today. See, throughout YouTube or anywhere, we keep asking the toppers basically. Whatever the educators have to say, I think those who have actually attempted the paper, unka opinion matters the most. And everybody keeps asking कि toppers की strategy क्या है? What is those few things that they do that we are not doing, kind of. So I would ask you those few foundationally important and the most magical or the most important things, three most important things, let's say for that matter, the mantra that you can tell to others who are watching this video. Like, can't miss out on these, like, must do things for them.
First would obviously be getting an idea of the paper. My first attempt at doing so was even after deciding I would take a drop, still having appeared for it in my class 12th, and then going over to the website of the consortium and downloading the previous year papers and appearing for the all the papers for the new pattern, that is 2020 onwards. So you just have to get the gist of what the consortium has a pattern of asking and what kinds of questions and what variations in the difficulty levels across the sections is something that you can expect in the paper. The second, and something that I think turned out to be a decisive factor, was the hours and hours of analysis I sat through for each mock test. Even if it would take 4, 6, or 7 or 8 hours, I would never shy away from analyzing that mock test regardless of how long it takes. Obviously there were some mock tests that would only take an hour or two for analysis, but on the other hand there were some where the difficulty level was pretty high and I would have to sit through for analysis 4, 5, or 6 hours. But something that I feel like is never miss out on any particular question, let alone an entire section. Never miss out on any particular section. Even if you haven't attempted, let's say, a caselet of cons, still, after appearing for the mock test, after the time limit is over, start attempting it and then, sit for the analysis and understand how you could have done that in a limited time, or what is that shortcut tip that you could have employed to solve it in a lesser time, or how you would have managed your time.
Right.
So this is the second thing. The third would be self analysis would not limit yourself to mock test, but self analysis is watching your graph and watching how your scores are going, how the ranks and percentile is varying, and you need to check that is there any particular section where you're over dependent. In my case, initially it was legal reasoning, where there were mocks where legal would be very easy and my score would skyrocket. Then there would be another mock where legal was extremely difficult, then my score would plummet. So you need to check, is there any particular section where you're getting over dependent on, because at the end CLAT is not going to give you any reward for scoring 100% in one particular section. It is only going to check what your total score is. uh, that is something that would only come when you are in a tie. When two people are scoring the same marks, only then does the legal reasoning section become a point of contention. But that is something you need to say for the later part. उस पॉइंट तक पहुंचने के लिए भी आपको इतने मार्क्स बाकी सेक्शन से लेकर आने हैं जिसके लिए यू come up to a certain particular level. So this is something that you need to analyze throughout your preparation, and obviously be content with whatsoever the sources you are using. And something that very important in this paper is maintaining your composure. Be ready for any shockers that they're going to give. The ones appearing for next year, it could probably be that the entire GK is fact based, or again, the entire GK could be RC based, or the legal reasoning questions could be one page long, or they could be one line wrong. You just need to be ready for any particular scenario that comes up in the paper and maintain the composure, because it being a competitive examination, something that is tough for you would be tough for everyone, and something that is easy for you would be easy for everyone. That is
Right.
something I would like to say.
Absolutely. Again, great insights. So we have to go through the previous year papers. We have to analyze well. We have to strategize well with the mocks as well, and then
Mm,
be consistent. Maintain our composure. For that, maybe yoga could help, or just meditating once in a while. Because एक दिन में आप composure नहीं लाते. It is
mm,
it comes with time, right? So you have to do all of that. So that's really great, really great insights, Divyansh. I believe I didn't really congratulate you for acing this exam. So let's close this session by congratulating you, because the insights that you've actually given could really help someone. From your perspective, it's very important, because someone who has actually attempted and someone who has actually given the paper, that
mm.
is very important. So thank you so much, Divyansh. Thank you so much for joining all of us. And anyone who has any kind of query, please let us and drop your messages below, and we'll try to reply to all of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Divyansh.